Everyone, welcome back to my channel, Stories Between Us, where I analyze and explain the psychology and the characters of each of the movies or books that I am going to be watching and reading. Today we are going to be watching Fault in Our Stars, which follows two teenage cancer patients, Hazel Grace and Augustus Waters, who meet at a cancer support group and fall in love, and it takes them on that unforgettable journey and experience. I cannot wait to watch this again. I have watched it, I think, twice now. And it gets me every time. It's so good. It was originally a book, which I am also going to be reading today. So with that being said, let's get into the movie.
I believe we have a choice in this world about how to tell sad stories. On the one hand, you can sugarcoat it, the way they do in movies and romance novels, where beautiful people learn beautiful lessons. This is the truth. Sorry.
I love the way the beginning starts with the narration. That's how a lot of tragic movies start, with someone narrating, and it's usually the survivor. So yeah, like I said, I've seen this, but I'm not gonna spoil anything as I'm watching. I'm gonna pretend I'm watching it for the first time. So I like how they added a little humor in the beginning already, like with her. She's a very humorous person, which is also one way to cope with things. It's a coping mechanism, which we might get into more later or after the movie's over. But so far it's like pretty. Gus hasn't been introduced yet. It's just
Not because I wanted to or because I thought it would help me, but for the same reason I did anything these days. To make my parents happy.
I feel like this one line's very important. Hazel says, "So I went," referring to the support group, "but not because I wanted to, but for the same reason I do everything these days, to make my parents happy." That is a very important line, because psychologically she knows what's happening to her. She's not denying it, and she just wants to make her parents happy while she's still there to do it. It sounds horrible, but that's psychologically what's going on in her mind. She wants to make her parents happy while she's there, so that they don't have to worry about her as much. Also, the fact that they're introducing the parents, I think that's a very important thing, because not every movie shows the parents of the child or the teenager or the adult even. It's mostly just the love story, if it's a love story, or it's the main characters. They don't really show people really outside the bubble, and I like how they're showing how they feel about it and stuff so far. Can't wait to see where it takes us.
Sorry.
Oh, there he is.
My bad.
I'm sorry.
There's Gus. So that's the meet cute. That's when they meet. The meet cute is when the two main characters of the story meet, and sometimes it's like a bump, sometimes it's like they don't even know it's a meet cute yet. It's just, I noticed when they were asking Gus in the support group what his fears were, he hesitated for a moment, which I don't think I've ever noticed that before, but I think he seems like the person that would use humor to cope as well, but possibly more, or he avoids the question entirely, so he just kind of steers in the safest direction, which was to say oblivion, to not do what I want to do. That's not to say that that's not a fear that he has, but I feel like I think it was more of like an avoidance of the question in a way, and the fact that he made eye contact with Hazel while saying it means that he wanted her to hear that as well. The way Hazel responded was, I think, exactly what Gus wanted. But he wanted her to respond. He wanted her to say something. It's exactly why he looked at her when he said it. And probably why he said oblivion as his answer as well, because he wanted to get something.
They don't actually hurt you unless you light them. I never lit one. It's a metaphor, see?
The metaphor with the cigarette. You put the thing that could kill you in between your teeth, but you never give it the power to kill you. That's his metaphor for basically life. And that's really important. There's something later that I'm going to mention about this, but this is a big metaphor in symbolism. So the symbolism of random objects is number 4 on my list in my book. So it's a tiny object that the person keeps with them, or if they end up dying, that's the thing that they kept with them that becomes really important later, or something that the other person hold on to, if that's the case. Basically what these symbols do, they become the micro symbols of the person's personality. So his personality is using metaphor, jokes, and flirting to cope with what had happened and what he fears might happen.
No, I've made plans with Augustus Waters.
And so it begins. She's made plans, she's getting out of her isolation. The backstory here is very important. It shows how she feels, it shows how, like, everything that happened and what she is and was going through. But importantly, it also shows the parents, which I feel like even then I felt like was very important for future in, and I'll explain that later as well once that comes up again. But yeah, it's very meaningful and important to show the backstory. The reason they didn't start with the backstory is because they want to start off with light, not darkness. It makes the story feel more approachable. It makes it feel safer, even though you know what's going to happen at the end of it, and you know what it's going to lead to. This establishes the first contact for the characters. It plants the seed for the future pain. Another metaphor. The lightness gives you someone to root for before you even know the entirety of their story. It introduces them as a lighthearted person instead of the darkness of their story, so you see them and not their pain necessarily yet. You see their life and not their life now, and not what came before their life now. It allows characters' voice to shine before it begins to crack and the pain starts to seep in through. They're already showing her problem with stairs, which I feel like is an important detail. Even though we knew her lungs were hard, usually we assume that it'd be going up the stairs would be the problem, or going up anywhere, but also going down the stairs is a struggle for her to get out of breath easily. It could be symbolism to the fact that she's not able to do things like other kids or other teenagers her age, which she's already explained, but it's also that she can't keep up with Augustus and what he can do. So, just a thought. I like how Augustus was asking about her story. He did not want to know about her cancer story. He wanted to know about her. He was separating the two from each other. Her illness and her. He wants to know about her. Which I feel like is very important, because a lot of people themselves, within themselves, just think of themselves as the sick person. Others may see them just as a sick person, but I think what helps their connection grow even now, as they just met, is that he's separating her from the cancer and seeing her as a real person instead of the sick girl. It also helps that he understands her, because he went through a similar thing, having cancer himself in the past. Imperial affliction. That will become a very important symbolism later. but also even before, I knew it was important because it wouldn't be brought up if it wasn't. They mentioned before she's been reading the same book over and over, and now we've established what that book is. And now she's getting Augustus to read it, and he's given her a book in return. That's a connection. I love the fact that the parents are noticing that she's reading a new book, and I feel like it also gives them a sense of relief to see her change it up, since her mom especially believes that she's depressed. Her doctor believes she's depressed, and she doesn't think she is, but seeing her read a different book than the same one she's been reading gives them a sense of relief. Isaac says that she broke up with him because she wanted to do it before the surgery because she can't handle it. He mentions that he's about to lose his eyesight and she can't handle it. Emphasize on the she. I think Isaac brings up a very good point that she can't handle it even though he's about to lose his eyesight. I feel like this moment between Hazel, Gus, and Isaac is a very important moment because it shows a connection between the three of them. I feel like that's going to be a very important thing later because the human body, the human mind demands connection. We're not meant to be isolated and lone wolves. Us as people, we're supposed to have connections to other people, even if it's just one other person. We are meant to have that. We're not supposed to be alone. So I think it's good that she's finding people that she is happy with, that she can be around and be happy, and that they have a good connection, because that's important for human nature, not just if you're going through something, but also in general. It's a good thing to have, and it's what the human mind, body needs psychologically. There's one thing from this Imperial Affliction book that they keep repeating over and over: pain demands to be felt. And I feel like that's a very important thing to be brought up in the story, because we know one way or another how the story is probably going to end, and that pain demands to be felt. And it's also very important for our lives as well, which is why we watch these movies. We watch it to feel related to feel empathy, to feel sadness, to feel any strong emotion, and to connect with characters. Saying that pain demands to be felt is also very truthful, because you shouldn't bottle up your emotions. You shouldn't keep them to yourself and not show your anger, sadness, whatever feeling you're feeling, even happiness. You shouldn't keep that to yourself.
And for taking the time to tell me that the book Interact with You Directly meant a great deal to you and your friend Hazel. Of course I did.
They're bonding very well over this book, and I like the way they're describing it as now they're both obsessed with it and they have something to truly talk about and relate to with each other, and it just makes the connection grow, which is scary on one end, but also very sweet and personal and meaningful on the other hand.
Mom marry the Dutch tulip man? Lastly, I was hoping you could shed some light on Sisyphus the hamster.
I like how they showed the time lapse between Hazel Grace and Augustus Waters talking and really just watching movies, hanging out, gaining a greater connection with each other. That way it doesn't feel rushed. They show a time lapse. This is the first step towards the soft middle, which I will explain deeper once we get into that part.
Perhaps okay will be our always.
That line. Perhaps okay will be our always. Now they have okay instead of Isaac and Monica's always. And that will become very important as the story goes on. It'll be their little thing, their symbolism, their way to connect even deeper, and it's just so beautifully written this way. So getting the email from Van Houten was like a dream come true for her, and now she really just wants to go to Amsterdam. They're sharing his wish. That's so cute. So with this movie, it's a little more difficult to pinpoint when the soft middle is. There's a little bit of a soft middle 2 times. So it's the soft middle where they're going on dates and they're just hanging out, or they're talking, getting to know one another, or he's inviting her to Amsterdam with him for his Make-A-Wish. And then there's the scene where she can't breathe and everything goes downhill again. She's not sick again, it's just an episode that happens, and it kind of jolts you and reminds you of what the story really is meant to be. This is what we call, or what I'm going to call, the disruption. What the disruption does is it explores the moment where the softness breaks. It's when something bad happens, whether it's to one of the characters themselves, to a friend, to anyone really, and it reminds us what the story is truly meant to be about. And this moment is when Hazel's lungs are filled with water again, and she can't breathe. She has to go to the hospital for a little bit, and this is also a little bit to test the relationship. You know what's happening. It reminds you, it like jolts you out of the softness of the story that's been so far, and it's the moment that the external world changes for these characters. It forces them to confront truths. It forces them to realize that they aren't healthy, or something can go wrong when they were just having all these happy and good moments. It forces them out of the denial that this can be a happy story and that this can end well, in which it can, but instead of being full force believing it and forgetting that something's wrong, it forces us to remember what this story is. The characters themselves can either cling harder to the person they're with, or it can lessen their grip and make them want to become distant again, and it scares them. It can scare them. It reminds the characters what separation from each other can look like and feel like, and that's a scary thing for anyone, and it's a dark reminder for us and for the characters. I like how they focused on Hazel seeing her parents holding hands, like they're worried, which any parent would be, but I feel like also that's important to note, because in Hazel's mind, she just wants her parents not to worry about her. She wants them to be happy as long as she's there. Any kid doesn't want their parent to worry about them. She doesn't want to feel like a burden or something that's causing them hurt or stress. And right now, seeing them worry about her makes her feel that way, and that's a very important psychologic note. They also show that flashback again of her almost dying and her parents telling her to let go and not be afraid, which also adds to this moment even more, because she's just constantly reminded, because she saw that. She heard it when she was going to die, and showing the flashbacks shows that it stuck with her. They also added the fact that Hazel's mom said, "I'm not going to be a mom anymore," as she was dying, and she still heard that. She remembers that, and I think that would stick with anyone and make them want to stay alive and keep trying as long as they can, even if maybe they don't always want to. And that's just, they never really show parent and kid dynamics in these types of stories, and I feel like they did it really well in this one, showing how the parents feel and how it affects both sides equally, instead of just how it affects the kid with the illness.
Yeah.
She's avoiding him and trying to create distance so that she doesn't get hurt or he doesn't get hurt. So this is the time where the relationship is tested. She grows distant, he's still trying to reach out to her, and like he said in the text messages, the silence is deafening. He has talked to her so much, he's grown a connection with her, and not talking to her is hurting him.
Hazel Grace.
Augustus.
Are you okay?
No.
What's the matter? Talk to me.
I also don't really want this particular life.
I like the moment where she calls him and talks to him, because that's also very important. Like I mentioned before, we're not supposed to, and we shouldn't bottle things up inside and stay to ourselves and stay isolated. That's not what we as humans are supposed to do. That's kind of like the dynamic of their story. She's scared, he's willing, but he's also willing to wait for her however long she needs. Okay, he calls out the truth that her trying to keep her distance doesn't make his affection any less real or make him feel any less for her. He likes her, loves her, whatever the case right now may be, and her keeping her distance isn't going to change that, but you can see it in her that she's scared that something's going to happen to her for real this time and he's going to get hurt. And she doesn't want that. This swing set is a real eye-opener for not only characters but for us as well, to see within them their fears, their hopes, and to remind us that the story might not have a happy ending, and that the fear that they have is real and valid for the situation that they're in. This line of hers is very important. She feels like it's her responsibility to minimize casualties. She knows one day, she's not in denial of it, that she's going to die, but she wants to make sure that she doesn't hurt more people than she has to. The fact that she's saying this shows that she cares about him and she knows he cares about her. That's not a question on either of their ends. But in her mind, it's her job to make sure that other people are safe and happy when she leaves. And no one should have to carry that burden, especially not on their own. So it's important for someone to be there to stick by her, be there with her, and stand with her through these fears, and not let it get to the point where she's completely isolated like she used to be. And that's why she was how she was at the beginning, not really going to the support group. She was probably scared to make connections there like she is now. She was probably scared about her parents. She knew her parents would be affected because she saw it when she was beginning to die for the first time, but didn't. And that stuck with her so much that now she feels like it's her job to protect the other people in her life, instead of just trying to live her life like to the fullest. And it's really heartbreaking for the audience and for the people that she's telling this, because no one should have to feel that way. There's their little phrasing again with the okays to show that they still care and that there's still a connection there. I like the little text bubbles. It kind of makes it feel like it is from a book, which is very clever for the creators. So this is the beginning of what we call the temporary recovery. So we got the news that Hazel, Augustus, and her mother are ending up going to Amsterdam. The disruption is now over. The isolation starts to resolve itself, And now this is what we call the temporary recovery. So this is the period after the disruption where things start to flicker back to life, where there's now flickers of hope, there's now signs of things going back to normal and being okay. It's like a breathing period. It's an exhale from the stress and disruption that was once before, and now we're into the calmer period where, okay, things are beginning to become okay again. Things might be okay. Because the audience of ourselves and the characters just saw what it might feel like to lose someone, or possibly lose someone, this moment makes it all the more important. It makes it more meaningful. The moments may feel steadier and deeper than they might have at the beginning with the small little date or movie nights. It makes the upcoming tragedy hit harder because we see what could have been, what is, and what was, and now we know how it's going to end, or maybe it'll have a twist on us, but it just builds the illusion of control for both of us, because they began to believe that they can manage the situation, they can be together, they can persevere through whatever illness circumstance they're going through. But the story will later show us how fragile this part of the story really is and how it can be changed in an instant.
You two are so adorable. We're just friends.
Oh, she is. I'm not.
We have the little upbeat music in the recovery. I love this. I love a good city scene. They're so fun. Find someone that looks at you the way Augustus looks at her. It's the city moments again where they're with each other, they're around the city, exploring a little bit. It's almost like a montage of connection. And it really deepens the story, especially with the music that gets chosen. That's cute. He said we've bottled all the stars for you this evening. Which is a bring back to the title, Fault in Our Stars. So I feel like in this moment, during their date at the restaurant, we really see their character archetypes really come out. We also saw that in the support group as well, where Hazel was saying, if you're scared of oblivion, you better get used to it, basically. And then now at the dinner she says maybe there is no point, because Augustus was gesturing, he believes in angels, in God, and heaven in some way, not in maybe the way that everyone else does, but some type of it. And he was saying, but because if there's none of that, then what's the point? And she was saying, what if there is no point? And so that kind of paints her as the realist, because they faced the truth. The realist faced the truth head on, the ugly, the good, the bad. It doesn't matter. They're painfully aware of their limits. They're grounded, and they protect their hearts by expecting disappointment. Their growth comes from letting themselves hope anyway, and the rebel or the dreamer would be Augustus, which their honesty balances their point of view on life, which is the one who has all the hope, who believes things can go well, who wants things to go well, and they believe it can be. They have an unshakable sense of hope and humor. If they're the rebel, they challenge the rules, they defy the odds. often the dreamer is the emotional light in the story, which I feel like Gus seems to be not only the comedic relief, but he uses humor to help people feel better and possibly also himself. As I've mentioned, that is a coping mechanism that we as humans use often. And as opposed to denying the tragedy, the dreamer often softens it. They don't see it as like a death note if they get a diagnosis. They see it as a chance to persevere and live life to the fullest while they can, while the realist sees it as I'm not surviving, so what do I do now? So it's kind of a good balance for these two to have the dynamic that they do, because it helps each other grow. She helps him see the truth sometimes, and he appreciates her honesty, and he helps her hope more than she would have if she hadn't met him. There it is.
You heard me.
He says he's in love with her.
And I know that the sun will swallow the only earth we will ever have. And I am in love with you. Sorry.
He addressed everything that she believes while still staying true to himself, which is very important for their dynamic as well. A lot of these moments as well we see in the flashbacks from the beginning, like this one where she's in the dress and jacket and he spins her. That took place in this very moment.
Listen, douchepants, there's nothing that you're gonna tell me about my disease that I don't already know.
Have you ever stopped to ask yourself why you care so much about your silly questions?
Alright, so this whole scene with Van Houten is very important to the story. It's not just like a filler scene, it's not just... It's the entirety of the book itself. That book has been kind of like Hazel's lifeline. It's what she's held on to, and it's what she loved, it's what she's related to. Because, as she says in the beginning, it's the only book that explains what it's like to be dying, without actually being dead. And to her, that meant something. She explained inside, asking him the question, she says she knows that it's literary and whatnot, but something has to happen to these characters after Anna is dead. And for her, she feels that because that almost happened with her parents. Her parents are almost left with a life where she was gone. She wants to know what the aftermath looks like, and not many movies show that. In the first place, not many movies, books show what happens afterwards, unless that's the whole purpose of the show or book itself. So for her to be asking that question, Dr. Van Houten wasn't entirely wrong when he asked, maybe you should ask yourself why you want to know the answers to these questions so badly. They want to know what happens at the end of the book because she wants to know what's going to happen to everyone else at the end of her life. And so it kind of correlates in that way for her. So in her mind, the book ends, but not everyone else's story ends, so why should it end there? Why shouldn't she get to see what happens on the other side? The assistant mentions that circumstances have made him cruel, which they don't really explore that really, at least not in the movie. We'll see what they say in the book. But I believe the writing is based on a true story. Like his writing, the book itself. And whatever happened to Anna affected him after he wrote the book, and he just went downhill, which can happen in real life. There's no excuses. There are always better ways to cope, and that's why you have to find good ways to cope instead of drinking, drugs, you know, everything we saw from him. We see Hazel still trying to live her life as they're going through the Anne Frank house. She knows there's going to be stairs. She knows there's no elevator. So she decides to go up the steps and persevere through it because she believes that's not only what she should do, but it's what she wants to do to prove to herself that she can keep doing this and that she can be like other people. She refuses the help from other people. She decides to carry it on her own. She just wants to keep going. And so she's so accustomed to doing things on her own because she believes she has to or she needs to. She keeps going without the help. Up the stairs, up the ladder, until she finally reaches the top, and when she does, she feels a great deal of relief and accomplishment. The Anne Frank audio over a moment where she's struggling to go up the stairs. It's very emotional. We're much too young to deal with these problems, is what Anne Frank says, yet they keep burdening themselves on us. And it relates to her circumstances in a way that she probably doesn't even realize. She probably can't hear the audio, but we can. We can correlate them together. I feel like this moment is also giving Hazel permission to hope and to be with Gus again because of the words Anne Frank is saying throughout this, and realizing she did go up those stairs, she did persevere, and maybe in doing so she can persevere with him. Oh no. Music's playing. They're walking. I could see it in Gus's face. The first time, last time, every time. That something here is gonna happen. And sometimes talks are very important moments. They're not as exciting maybe as like action movies or anything, but for these movies they're important.
So I had a PET scan. And it lit up like a Christmas tree.
This is where another disruption happens. Usually there's only one disruption and then two of the recoveries. This is another disruption from the happy recovery that happens, which I explained is an abrupt moment where things change and something bad happens, and it's really hard for the characters and us to watch because now we see the vision of what can happen. We see this whole time Gus is still hurting, and now as I'm rewatching it, I'm seeing all the moments through like when he was at the hospital with Hazel, when he was talking with Van Houten. You could see it on his face. It just means even more now what this all means, and you see him still comforting her and still being there for her, and their love for each other is so beautiful and so well written that you didn't even notice anything was going on until he said it. But after rewatching it, you see everything. This is a little bit of comedic relief. I wouldn't call this like a full recovery. I just call this little happy moments in between where we know the story is leading, where they're egging the house. Oh no. Oh yeah, the phone call, I forgot. Oh, this is where something happens.
What?
Something's wrong. You gotta... Can you come and help me?
This is the moment where the stakes rise a little bit. We had one happy moment, not to bring us from the darkness, but to give us a little bit of happiness before something else happens. This moment where Gus is in the gas station parking lot and Hazel's trying to help him. One, he doesn't want her to call 911 or his parents, and he says he'll never forgive her. Of course, that's not true. He doesn't mean that. He says it because he really just wants to do something for himself. He doesn't want to feel this anymore. He wants to feel okay and normal again. So he doesn't want anyone to call 911 because he knows what that's going to lead to. He knows it's going to mean more things. He knows it's going to mean he stays there. It means 911 means something is wrong, and he doesn't want there to be anything wrong. This is the point where he's not necessarily in denial, but he would rather act like he's in denial than accept the truth of what's happening, because for our brains it's too hard to process, so we don't want to believe it. And this also leads into the butterfly effect. The unlit cigars were a constant thing throughout this whole movie. He always had one in at least every other scene that they showed from us. And if it wasn't for that metaphor, if it wasn't for the cigars, he wouldn't have been in the gas station parking lot, and therefore he might have been at home when this happened, safer. He also says that he wanted to do something for himself, which means he feels like he has no control, and at least not anymore. He feels like he has no control, he can't do anything. He wanted to do something for himself. He wants to feel like he can be independent again, but the hard truth is, with a disability, with an illness, with everything that they're going through, it's just not possible to do certain things anymore, and that's what's frustrating for them. And in a way, this was like a rebellion act, but at the same time, psychologically, he just wanted to feel like he still had some control over his life. He wanted to buy something for himself. He wanted to be able to drive. He just, yeah. This moment where they're at the park with each other is another moment where their relationship is tested, and we see them talking about him wanting to live a legacy, him wanting to leave something behind, and Hazel takes that or believes it in the wrong way. This is another moment where the realist and the dreamer have a collision. Augustus wanted to live a life where he'd be remembered by everyone, but Hazel disagrees and says that people who love you and people who see you as special, your family, your friends, that should be enough. The world shouldn't have to see you as special in order to live a meaningful life. You don't have to have this grand gesture in life or grand crater in existence to have and live a meaningful life. And that's what Hazel's explaining to him, and that's realist colliding with dreamer as in the way of what it means to live a meaningful life and what that means when you're gone. I feel like this park scene shows that really well. And the fact that Hazel even mentioned that his humor left and went away, and his courage didn't stay, is also a important thing to note, because not only did it happen, but she noticed it. He didn't try to hide it. He didn't try to stay strong for her, and no one should. But the fact that he was real with her is a very important thing in a relationship. You shouldn't have to pretend to be happy with someone, and I feel like that's a very important dynamic that they have together.
Come on, just eat something, honey. Stay healthy? Okay, I'm not healthy and I'm gonna die. Do you realize that I'm dying and you're gonna be here and you're not gonna have anyone to look after or hover around and you're not gonna be a mother anymore and I'm sorry, but there's nothing I can do about that. So can I please go? Why would you say that? Because you said that. What are you talking about? In the ICU.
It was very important that she bring up the fact that she heard what her mother said about not being a mother anymore once she's dead. You just kind of say things when you're in a moment of distress or anger and you don't always mean it. Or she learned since then that that's not what that means. And this conversation was really important for them to have, for Hazel to learn that they would be okay when she was gone. The fact that it had been haunting her since she was 13. And her parents didn't even know that she heard it, that she had been holding on to this memory for so long. And that was her greatest fear, that they would just not have a life anymore after she was gone. It makes me wonder if she was called on in the support group to share her greatest fear, what she would have said, if it would have been that, or if she would have said something else just so she didn't have to admit it to herself. Because sometimes when we have a great fear like that, like death or oblivion or leaving people behind, we tend to turn it off when our brains think of it. We put it in our subconscious, let it linger there and simmer there. But it's really important to write them down or tell someone, or not be alone with that fear, especially if it's such a big one like that and when you're struggling with something. So this conversation between her and her mom, letting her know that they would be okay and will be okay when she's gone, was very important for her growth and for her to allow herself to move on. You could see the relief on Hazel's face the minute they tell her that they were gonna help other people now and after her. And that's a very important thing for them to have told her, because she feels free here. And she has less of a burden on her shoulders.
I'm gonna tell those scientists to piss off, cause Gus, I don't even want to see a world without you.
And Augustus Waters was the star-crossed love of my life. I cannot tell you how thankful I am for our little infinity.
That funeral scene with Augustus, I feel like, was also a very important part of the story, because he got to see what everyone else, well, what Isaac and Hazel was going to say to him, because he didn't know if he was going to see it himself. And that part is just so important because it gives him the closure and it gives him the security that he made the difference that he hoped he did on them. That what he did with all those memories that he had with them was meaningful, and therefore it made him feel like, yes, he did indeed have a meaningful life. And now we're told that Augustus passed just a couple days later.
The whole thing. Every second worse than the last. The reason I called it a 9 was because I was saving my 10. And this was it.
I think it's also an important thing to note that us as the audience, we feel the pain not only because of the character's death, but because of the survivor's reaction to it. as we will see in multiple movies, we always see someone's reaction. We always see the aftermath in some way, shape, or form. What we hardly ever see is the death itself. It either turns black, they don't show it, they just mention it. We never see the death itself, and I feel like that is purposeful because it's not straight up told to us. It's projected onto us. It's mentioned, and we get the hint from the reaction, from the way things happen afterwards, from the next scene that comes. We don't know exactly what happened until we see the next scene. And that's partially what makes it all the more hurtful. The narration from Hazel talking about how she was saving her 10 for a moment like this, I also feel like that shows a lot about her personality, that she was real enough to know that whatever she was feeling then is not as bad as compared to what would come later. Of course, when she was 13 in the ICU, she didn't know that she would need that 10, but she saved it for a moment where she knew she would need it more, so she just told them it was a 9. And that's kind of like the brain mentally preparing for something, because you know something's bad now, but you never know what may come later, so you save a small piece of your mind, you mentally prepare, you do what she did, isolate, reread the same book over and over because it's comforting. You do whatever you can to cope and to keep to yourself, so that when the 10 does come, when on the scale of 1 to 10 pain does come along, maybe you think that it won't hurt as bad. They think it won't hurt as bad, but the truth is the 10 is still a 10. You can prepare for it, but sometimes most times it won't lessen the pain. It'll just mentally prepare you for what you're gonna feel regardless. And I feel like this movie did a really good job at revealing that and showing that. I also want to mention that at the funeral you can see in Hazel's hand the pack of cigarettes that she has, and that is also symbolism. That's something that Augustus always had on him. Like I've mentioned, it's symbolism for him, but now it's her way of holding on to him. She knows what he liked. She knows that was his thing, so she's gonna hold on to it, put it at his casket, and hold on to it. You also see that when she has her chance to talk for the eulogy, she didn't read the note that she had because she already read it for Gus, and that was something between them that she knew now that was special between them, and she didn't want to share that with the world. She wanted that to be something special between them, and that also reveals how meaningful their relationship was, that she was willing to just keep it between them and not share what she had written for him. She also made a very good point saying funerals are not for the dead, they're for the living. It's for the living to move on, to cope, to say their last goodbyes to the person that was lost, instead of as opposed to the person saying goodbye to the living. It's the other way around, and I don't think people really think about it or take that into as much consideration until you hear those words said out loud, because to us it doesn't process that way. Funerals are for those who are gone, not for those who are still here mourning. And now in the car scene we get the we get the explanation from Van Houten and what happened. We get him to open up a little bit about his daughter, and we get a little bit of empathy from him, but only when something happens to someone else and he feels bad for it. The song that's playing as she's driving is also very important because Augustus asked a question when they were at the restaurant. He asked, "Do you believe in God?" And she said no. And he's like, "What about angels?" That's what the song is called as she's driving in her car, and it makes it very meaningful in a way that maybe wouldn't have been as much in a different movie.
Okay, Hazel Grace?
Okay.
So, we finished the movie. I do have a few things to say before we end this video. One, the ending itself, with the letter. That is also somewhat of a symbolism. We don't see what happens with the letter afterwards. We don't see what she does with it. But we see her holding it after she's done reading it. And that's kind of like his version of giving her closure. Even though at the funeral that he attended, that was his version of getting closure for himself. I also think that conversation before she read the letter with her and Isaac was important, because if they never had that conversation, maybe she would have never gone back for the letter. And now the two of them have, weirdly enough, but also not weird, a closer friendship because they have something that they both lost, someone that they both cared for, and that just makes them feel closer to each other now and closer friends. And like, we didn't see them hug once through the entire movie, but then at the end of it we see them hug a little bit, and he's the whole reason that she read the letter in the first place. Also, with the oxygen tanks showing the symbolism for limitations, his wheelchair for those two scenes was also symbolism of his limitation to move like he used to. We saw it before and the after, and we didn't get to see much of that for Hazel. And overall, this movie showed us that the ending that we think we'll get is not always the one that we will get. I know for me, when I first watched this movie, I thought Hazel would be the one that was lost, not Augustus. And it hurts a little bit more because what you were preparing for before no longer happened. I also like how the ending ended with the letter, so it gives us ourselves a sense of closure for Augustus's death. And it ends with the word okay, which was a continuous thing throughout the entirety of the movie. And not only does it give Hazel the sense that he accepted what was going to happen to him, even if he didn't like it, of course, but he accepted it, and he wrote something for her to have something to remember him by, other than the cigarettes that were unlit. And for us, it gave us the letter. I hope they have it in the book as well, but we shall see. Once I finish reading it, I'll do a whole video on that and everything. So, but yeah, that was Fault in Our Stars, and let me know what you thought about the movie if you watched. I will see you guys with the next book or movie. For now,